Is this pop star mic gonna work for me? Good. I know that I can't take no more, baby, bye, bye, bye. If I was slightly cooler, my cultural reference would be less dated than like 24 years, but we'll go with it. Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm an engineer at Arcadia. It's a company that's focusing on democratizing access to clean energy and clean energy data. So it does things like allowing your organization to better understand your usage or minimize your carbon footprint, et cetera. But I'm here today to talk about building inclusive systems as a software engineer because I'm deeply invested in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I want to ease the ramp between I care and I know how to take action. Feel free to tell me if you disagree, but I feel like this is vaguely accurate. Show of hands, do you care about having a diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplace? Wonderful. I love seeing all those hands. If you didn't raise your hand, come talk to me later in office hours. I will be happy to share with you so many resources about the business case and the moral case for diversity. Studies show it benefits everyone. For those of you who did raise your hand, raise it again if you feel like it's hard to make meaningful progress and you don't know how to go about it. Okay, a fair number. Yeah, great. And for those of you who didn't raise your hand and feel like you have it on lockdown, let's also chat later and trade tips. For those of you who did raise your hands, let me tell you that you have the skills to make this happen. Your engineering skills are eminently useful at all levels of making change, and honestly, you probably already do this a bit when you advocate for accessibility testing on your company's website. But we can do more. Here's a list of things I think that engineers do, and you don't have to read them all. This is just a gut check about the skills that we have. It's not exhaustive, although I swear that Googling error messages is half of my job. And here's a list of things that I think StaffPlus engineers do. And many of these skills were yoinked directly from Will Larson's book, Staff Eng, so I feel fairly confident that I'm not wildly off base about it. So hopefully you're on board with these being skills that we have, yeah? Give me some, yeah, or, okay, good. Seems mostly positive. Great. So what we're gonna do in the next 8 minutes is walk through common problems that people have in organizations and how you can use some of the skills you already have to make change. Ready? Yes, Nicole, I'm ready. Cool, great. Problem number 1. People are well-intentioned, but there's not really organized diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. What can you do? We can solve this with our human skills. We can coordinate with leaders and other ICs. We can facilitate conversations about what people want to achieve and what the goals are. Break big requests down into small, accomplishable tasks so that diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't like a 15-point JIRA ticket. And we know how to get buy-in. Okay, great, solved that. Whew. Now your company has identified that they want to increase the diversity of their hiring pipeline, but don't know how to measure success. We can solve this too. You can create a dashboard that tracks diversity metrics. Maybe this already exists. Pro tip, it does. Or I should do it this way. Pro tip, it does. You can figure out whether you want to build or buy. Chances are, talk to your people team. If they don't already if you use Greenhouse at your company or some similar resource, and your people team isn't tracking this stuff already, there are built-in reports that they can use. However, they don't do everything. So they can tell you people from an underrepresented group are falling out at this point of the pipeline, but they can't tell you people are falling out for this reason at this point in the pipeline. So maybe then you decide that you want to build your own, at which point, finally, all those engineering skills, the hard ones, come in handy about controlling access, considering how you're going to store sensitive data, and anonymize information. If there's 4 candidates for a role and there's only 1 person of color, that's pretty identifiable. So maybe not make it visible at a super granular level. But these are all problems we can solve. Talk to the people around you, figure out their blockers, and I bet you can solve this. If you decide to go to the build route, Greenhouse also has an API that'll give you that information, more than you can find in their built-in reports. So maybe start with the built-in version, and if it turns out that your people team is oh, this information is great, but I want more, you can make that happen for them. Okay, so You have a diverse hiring pipeline. Awesome. And then you start finding out that people from underrepresented groups are like dropping out of the pipeline at a particular place. And you're like, what could be going wrong? A hypothesis is maybe that the interview process or the interviews themselves are biased. We can figure this out. We can test this hypothesis, maybe do some natural language processing of interviewer notes. If we can build a model that takes in 100 score sheets and the demographic information of the people who are being evaluated on those score sheets, if you strip out identifying information like pronouns or names or other things that should be identifiable, and a model can still say, with some degree of accuracy, this score sheet is for a man, or like this score sheet is for someone from an underrepresented racial group, probably means there's some bias in there. This sounds like an actually pretty cool Hack Week project if anyone's looking for one, so let me know if you do it. But keep in mind that all this information is like kind of sensitive, so ask and be a little careful when you do it. You can also just do a simple analysis of the makeup of the pipeline at various stages, and Python would be great for this. Python's great for everything, let's be real. Okay, so now you have a diverse workforce. Great, problem solved. But now it seems like promotions are disproportionately going to one group. What can we do about this one? I don't think I can just like NLP my way out of that. Possibly not, but you can create a sponsorship or mentorship program that's available to everyone and not just like, oh, I decided to take you under my wing. You remind me of a young Nicole. It can be just a couple of Google Forms and a matching algorithm, or do it by hand if your team is small enough. You can gather feedback before and after the program starts and see if it changes things for people in underrepresented groups. As usual, you'll probably talk to people about what they want from the program and what's reasonable. You'll get buy-in from leadership. You start small and expand, all these things that we know how to do. I've done this at multiple companies. It's really low investment and really high payoff. And if you're wondering whether you should start a mentorship or a sponsorship program, keep in mind that women and people of color are generally over-mentored and under-sponsored. So if you're leaning one way or the other, if you're ambivalent, maybe lean towards sponsorship. And if you don't know the difference between those things, I can tell you what to Google later, or you already have those skills. You can Google it yourself. It can be really scary to put yourself out there with something like this and be told that you're wrong or you're missing something. And at some point, as we try to make our systems better, we will step on someone's toes or say something biased or ignorant. And I've probably done that in these last 8 minutes. But I believe it's better to try and be corrected than to not act. And we're so good at Googling. You can type in, how do I advocate for folks with disabilities at work? Or how do I make my data analysis equitable? Wherever you are in your organization, you can help foster inclusivity, but your opportunities for doing so increase exponentially with your level. Your responsibility to work toward this change also increases dramatically with your privilege. And change doesn't have to be a top-down initiative. In fact, inclusive and equitable change seldom starts that way, considering those at the top are seldom from disempowered groups, which is one of the things that we want to change. So as ICs of a relatively large scope and authority, we're in a great position to bring change to our organizations. And as a bonus, the work we do toward these goals often benefits our own careers. It doesn't require a ton of time or financial investment. So there's a ton of things that we can do with the skills that we already have. And the things that I listed already are just examples to get you started. You can bring software engineering solutions to recruiting and your people teams. You can start cross-team initiatives regarding accessibility or bringing equity considerations to data analysis conversations or advocating for pay equity analyses. But what will you commit to? Thank you.